Well, everyone, thank you for joining me. It's good to have you here again. I feel like Mr. Rogers. You know where you're in my neighborhood, and I got a nice shirt for you. This is my Barry Soetoro shirt. Let's not forget his name when he came into the United States. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, socks it down. Hey, what was his first job, by the way? Oh, I worked for Henry Kissinger and Associates. Oh, that's interesting. Small world, isn't it, with the CFR? But it gets interesting. What do we have for you tonight? I've got the Lybia UN wars, because I brought this guy. Why him? I know, why him? You know, where's my birth certificate? Stopped asking that after Trump and, after he put his thing on the website, and then it had layers. Onions have layers. You know, ogres have layers. But this guy had a birth certificate? It had layers. Pretty good, huh? Yeah, we'll go over that in another show. But this guy, anyway, started bombing people. Now we're killing children in Libya. Good work, Sharonites. Good work, Americans. Now you bomb sovereign nations because this guy said so. Didn't it used to be that it was in the Constitution? I'm going to go Article 1, Section 8. Where Congress is the only one who can declare war. It's funny because the Founding Fathers, you've heard of those, and the Founding Mothers, they had, they had talked and discussed and said, you know, a lot of times, you know, when you get one person in power like King George, you can get a tyrant. And they didn't want to be dragged off to wars based on one person's, you know, hearsay. But it's awful funny. This one guy, 120 cruise missiles the first night. That's what I call humanitarian. Now it's Al-Qaeda that they're arming. That's humanitarian. Yeah, and people shooting each other, that's humanitarian. And as we like to say, if the #1 crop of Libya was broccoli, we'd really care, wouldn't we? Okay, so anyway, tonight's show, the United Nations Libya wars. Because remember, he didn't do this because the United States Congress declared war. No, 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 no. Go replay. There's some homework. Go replay his thing. What's he doing? He's backing up the UN, who decided we're going to do a no-fly. Well, now that was what? That was like March. They've been bombing it since March, and guess what? They're not doing too good, are they, with their bombing and all that stuff? But we have a... Oh, wait a minute. It's coming down upon me. It's a debt ceiling, right? Oh, yeah. We got a debt ceiling, but we can afford to just shove 120 cruise missiles in one shot. How about all the sorties? How about all the planes? And they use the term NATO, but it gets better. The debt ceiling. Remember the debt ceiling? That's because to do something unconstitutional like declare war, presidents can't do that. Not even, and I don't know if you remember, because of the Vietnam War, based on a lie known as the Gulf of Tonkin. Find out it was declassified, but maybe you, the Sharon viewer, think that the Vietnam War was based in just. It was based on a lie. Type that in, Gulf of Tonkin. Right, yeah, our ships weren't attacked, but they told the media, the prostitutes, told us that our ships were attacked in the Gulf of Tonkin, and so we lost, what, 50,000 Americans, wounded like 250,000, killed millions over there, all based on a lie. So now we're bombing Libyans. He is. With your name. He's bombing Libyans with your name, with your money. Then he's telling you, well, we don't have enough money. We've got a budget crisis. We always seem to have enough money to bomb somebody, don't we? Don't we have money to bomb people? Because that's what the people in Sharon like. They like to pay money to bomb people because they value life, don't you? And a Libyan baby, that's, you've got to look down upon it. A Libyan baby. That's not the same value as a Sharon baby. No, 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 no. A Libyan grandmother? Not as valuable as a Sharon grandmother. A Libyan daughter? Nope, nope, not close, not as valuable. A Libyan niece? Maybe. Libyan uncle? Possibly. But not a Libyan child. Not a Libyan baby. So now we can bomb people based on what? The new king? And so what did they do with the debt ceiling? They created a thing they called the debt ceiling. We've been there before, but now we have a super Congress, don't we? Maybe that whole debt ceiling theater was so that they could enact legislation so that now your representatives aren't listened to in Congress. Unless you're one of the Golden 12 with you-know-who right now for number 13, and it's not even him. How about the next guy, gal, whatever. So anyway, with that, here we go. I want to show you this video. This is Real American Heroes. Here you go.
Over the last 5 decades, we have witnessed a wave of U.S. military interventions, a series of bombings, invasions, and long-term occupations. Undertaken, we have been told, by one president after another, with the most noble of intentions. and paid for with the lives of young Americans and countless others around the world.
What has occurred with one war after another is still with us. These dynamics are in play in terms of the U.S. occupation of Iraq, looking at other countries such as Iran, and the future will be replicated to the extent that we fail to understand what has been done with these wars in the past. The news media have generally bought into and promoted the notion that it's up to the president to make foreign policy decisions. This smart guy in the Oval Office has access to all the information. He knows more than we do. He's the commander-in-chief. The American people have no major role to play, and nor should they, because after all, they don't have the knowledge or capability to be responsive to the real situation. That was certainly true during the Vietnam War, as it was to be later, time after time. There were people in Congress who raised these issues, and they simply were marginalized by the news media, even though in retrospect, maybe especially because in retrospect, they had it right, and the conventional wisdom and the president were wrong.
However difficult this vote may be, some of us must urge the use of restraint. Our country is in a state of mourning. Some of us must say, let's step back for a moment. Let's just pause just for a minute. And think through the implications of our actions today so that this does not spiral out of control. As we act, let us not become the evil that we deplore. Thank you, and I yield the balance of my time.
Gentlewoman's time has expired.
And this is a very common motif of history in the last several decades, where people who at the time were portrayed as loners, as mavericks, as outside of the mainstream of wisdom, turned out to understand the historical moment.
We got to back our president. Since when? Do we have to back our president, or should we, when the president is proposing an unconstitutional act?
The best example is Wayne Morse, the senior senator from Oregon, who, beginning in 1964, was a voice in the congressional wilderness. Senator Morse was unusual in that he challenged the very prerogative of the U.S. government to go to war against Vietnam. He said, it's up to the American people to formulate foreign policy.
Senator, the Constitution gives to the President of the United States the sole responsibility for the conduct of foreign policy.
Couldn't be more wrong. You couldn't make a more unsound legal statement than the one you have just made. This is the promulgation of an old fallacy that foreign policy belongs to the President of the United States.
To whom does it belong then, Senator?
Belongs to the American people.
All right,
and our constitutional fathers made it very clear.
Where does the President fit into this in the responsibility scale?
What I'm saying is, under our Constitution, all the President is the administrator of the people's foreign policy. Those are his prerogatives. And I'm pleading that the American people be given the facts about foreign
Senator,
policy.
That the American people cannot formulate and execute foreign policy?
Why, you're a man of little faith in democracy if you make that kind of announcement. I have complete faith in the ability of the American people to follow the facts if you'll give them.
It isn't.
And my charge against my government is we're not giving the American people the facts.
And that's a kind of faith in democracy that's not in fashion among the Washington press corps or the power elite in the nation's capital. But it's a good reading of the Constitution, and it's a good definition of democracy. Independent journalist I.F. Stone said that all governments lie, and nothing they say should be believed. Now, Stone wasn't conflating all governments, and he wasn't saying that governments lie all the time, but he was saying that we should never trust that something said by a government is automatically true. Especially our own, because we have a responsibility to go beneath the surface, because the human costs of war, the consequences of militaristic policies, what Dr. King called the madness of militarism, They can't stand the light of day if most people understand the deceptions that lead to the slaughter and the human consequences of the carnage. If we get that into clear focus, we can change the course of events of this country, but it's not going to be easy, and it will require dedication to searching for truth.
A time comes when silence is betrayal. That time has come for us, even when pressed by the demands of inner truth. Men do not easily assume the task of opposing their government's policy, especially in time of war. And I knew that I could never again raise my voice against the violence of the oppressed in the ghettos without having first spoken clearly to the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today, my own government. What do they think as we test out our latest weapons on them, just as the Germans tested out new medicine and new tortures in the concentration camps of Europe? Now that is little left to build on save bitterness. We are met by deep but understandable mistrust. To speak for them is to explain this lack of confidence in Western words, and especially their distrust of American intentions now. The world now demands a maturity of America that we may not be able to achieve. This way of settling differences is not just. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. Somehow this madness must cease. We must stop now. I speak as one who loves America. To the leaders of our own nation, the great initiative in this war is ours. The initiative to stop it must be ours.
Yeah, because in this country we have to change, who we put up as stars. LeBron James is not my hero. Okay, I don't care how well you think Sammy Sosa and all these other stupid names, Drew Bledsoe, not my hero, not my star, Bobby Orr, I'll lean with you a little because at least he was real during the whole time. But here you go, we're got another one for you. This is Senator Rand Paul talking about this guy, Barry Soetoro, his first original name. Remember his father, Lolo Soetoro. Don't believe me, maybe that's some homework. So anyway, Senator Rand Paul discussing bombing a sovereign nation. Here you go.
The President of the United States often faces unforeseeable dilemmas that demand tough decisions based on reliable intelligence. The recent events in Libya presented President Obama with such a scenario. But how our Commander-in-Chief chose to handle this new dilemma raises serious questions about his understanding of constitutional checks and balances. Libyan President Muammar Gaddafi is every bit the madman Ronald Reagan once said he was. But are the rebels adherents to Jeffersonian democracy or bin Laden's radical jihad? In 2007, then-candidate Obama said that the president does not have power under the Constitution to unilaterally authorize a military attack in a situation that does not involve stopping an actual or imminent threat to the nation. I agree with the candidate Obama. Unfortunately, President Obama has failed to heed his own advice. He has ignored our Constitution and engaged us in a military conflict without congressional debate and approval. What imminent threat did Gaddafi or Libya pose to the United States? Obviously, the decision to take military action of this magnitude is something that should not be taken lightly and should first require determining whether it is in the United States' vital national interests. Over the weekend, even Defense Secretary Robert Gates admitted that America has no vital interest in Libya. Our brave men and women in uniform are patriotic defenders of our nation. They are members of the greatest military in the world, and in times of war, I am confident of their willingness and ability to ensure that our vital interests are protected. But they should not be asked to be nation builders or the world's policemen.